Hey everyone, welcome back to another Lightroom tutorial. We've got another image sent in, so we're going to be trying to recreate the exact same edit with the exact same photo. So we are working with this image right here, trying to recreate a beautifully creamy edit to the images. So if you guys like what you see here, you can come and give her a follow down in the description. So yeah, let's get into Lightroom, see if we can create something awesome like this. Here's a photo from our Instagram and the raw unedited image. So looking at our cropping, you can see we've really cropped in here and we have some really nice rule of thirds going on here. So first thing I might do is bring down the exposure. Bring up some highlights. So we're just adding in a bit of contrast as it was very flat. Take down some shadows. We don't have very bright whites in this image. As you can see, up here is the brightest area. Whites are pretty down. And we obviously need much darker blacks if you look in areas such as that. Now that is too black down here, but I'm planning on adding in a bit of a fade with the curves, because if you look at these blacks, you can tell there's a fade in there if you look closely. So let's do that. Okay, so clarity, I'm going to add in quite a bit of clarity. There's quite a crispness to this photo and it really needs it since we've cropped in so much. Probably should have done this before we did the curves, but I'm going to bring up clarity. You can see what that does. Really makes the image pop. So about there, and I think that looks pretty good. Really good. And one other thing about this image is you can tell there's a lot of haze to it. There's a lot of atmosphere. So we're going to have to put that in. I'm going to put a filter up in this corner to try to recreate that nice haze and atmosphere we have. But I'm just going to add a bit to the entire image by just dropping the dehaze. And it will soften up the image a lot because it was a very digital looking image. Especially if you bring up clarity. Clarity can give you a very digital looking image and you really don't want that. So softening up with haze might also bring down the vibrance. Right, so we need to work on our colors I think now. Actually, before I do that, there's something a little bit off with the cropping, but if you look at the edges, we've got it pretty darn close. But what she's done is if you come down here to manual and you just increase the distortion a bit, not too far because then you can see the edges here, but just a bit, and it compresses the image a bit and gives a real nice effect. Makes the image look that bit more grand. So there's before and after of just the distortion. So I think that looks great. Nice trick there. So I think we might be on to our colors now. And let's play around with... We're just looking a little dark. But I know we've got the darkness pretty close because if you look down here, it matches up pretty well down here. However, we don't match up very well in these areas of the image. So I know a filter has been used, like this. And I am going to bring down exposure. Bring down the highlights. Bring down the shadows a bit. Right, so we've just darkened up this side of the image, and what it does, we've got such nice rule of thirds going on in this image and leading lines, so our eye naturally starts here and just goes off in this direction, and it's just really pleasing. So darkening this side of the image stops us from looking over in this direction, and we just nicely follow along out in this direction. So great technique to really enhancing the composition of your photos. So now that we've done that, I think we are on to some colors. Might just chuck some blue in the highlights before we mess with HSL. Right, so coming to HSL now, and we'll touch up the background out there a bit later. We'll get these colors pretty close. So first thing I might do is, I know we need a lot more of a pop to a lot of these colors, especially like the greens and the yellows. So I'm going to lift them up a bit. Yellows. Looking good. And if we go to saturation, let's try some yellows. And obviously these blues and aquas need to come up a bit. Right, hue. So let's shift these, no, let's shift the greens to more of a blue, because they don't look very green in our image. They look too warm. So shift them away from the warmth. We get a much greener green. But as you can see, we've got some warm bits in there still, up here. These greens in this spot in particular are a bit warmer. We've sort of got this lime, bright green. So the yellows, which affect this part of the image a lot, and a lot of the rest of the greens, I'm going to shift them to a bit more of a warmth. I think that looks better. Aquas, so we're looking pretty good already. Just maybe a slight change. These blues. I think they can be more of a teal. Purples, not many in there. Magentas, not many in there at all. Back to saturation. Let's look at, might bring down the greens a bit.